Tying up another Carrie Stevens streamer today. This is called the Carrie's Special. She has a series that she did, Carrie's Favorite, Carrie's Special. There's a third one, Carrie's Fancy, I think. This is the Carrie's Special. Interesting little fly. It's very similar to a lot that she's done. Tinsel body on this, white bucktail for the belly, but it does have a golden pheasant crest in the wing as well as in the throat. But this also has, this is the shoulder of this, is a yellow-tipped rump feather from a golden pheasant. First time I've ever worked with that in any of these streamers. It's a nice, interesting look. The wing has a golden badger hackle in it that's a little shorter, and it actually, the color combination works real well with the pink and the yellow-tipped rump feather. So that's the Carrie Special. I'll get started tying. So I've already started the Carrie Special by getting my hook in the vise here. This is a Partridge CS15 in a size 4. I'll debarb the hook. I've gone ahead and attached my base layer of thread here and ran it down and back up. It is just a tinsel body, so this gives me a nice base layer. The thread that I'm using for the initial base layer is a Danville 210 Denier in white. You could use black or even any other color if you want, because there's a tinsel body and it's going to be a double layer of tinsel. So, but I just grabbed the white because that's normally what I use on a lot of these, especially when there's a floss body. Before I attach the, let me real quick, I'm going to go ahead and tie in the tinsel. I'm using a Danville number 10 silver and gold Mylar tinsel. What I'm going to do is put some flex cement, Dave's flex cement, on those thread wraps to help bond and secure this tinsel for a couple of reasons, which I'll explain. But it's better if I actually have the tinsel tied in first. As you can see, in touching all of this, if I put the flex cement on there and then try to tie in the tinsel, I'll get flex cement all over my hands. So this is just some Dave's flex cement. You could use super glue if you want to, or Sally Hansen's some other head cement that you use also. But I'm just going to put a little bit along the thread wraps here on top and bottom. This is going to secure that tinsel because the tinsel's got a lot of memory in it. If I lose hold of this, especially on my way back up on that second layer, if I lose hold of the tinsel, it can unwrap all the way back to the beginning. The other thing is that when you're fishing this fly, if you don't have that on there, and in fighting a fish or even bumping rocks and things like this, that tinsel breaks, it's just all going to come unraveled. This way, the tinsel does not come unraveled, and it just secures the fly a little bit, makes it last a little longer. So now I'm just going to apply touching turns, that tinsel down to the end and back up. With the tinsel body here done, I'll secure this end and trim it away. The Carrie Stevens streamers had a specific way that she would tie in materials that I've been doing some research and discovering a little bit. The Carrie Special has a Golden Pheasant Crest in the wing, as part of the wing, as well as part of the throat. And normally I would tie in the bucktail and the throat and then go on top to start doing the wing. But what I've discovered is she would actually tie in, I like to call it an underwing, like the Golden Pheasant Crest or often peacock curl, because it's just part of, she has it listed as part of the wing, and these feathers are for the wing. That's a shoulder and a cheek right there. But she would tie this in first. So I'm going to tie in this Golden Pheasant Crest. To tie this in near the butt end down here. I get that in my fingers right. And I just want to get 2 or 3 wraps on that just to secure it a little bit, because then I will pull this to the right to get it the right length. I can also scooch that around a little bit on top of the hook shank so it more or less stays on top. The problem with these pheasant crests is they end up getting a curve and a twist in them. And there's ways that you can minimize that and the effects of it so that you get something that lays a little smoother on the hook shank. But I find that I still get a bit of a twist in some of those. Now I'm going to advance my thread forward here behind the eye of the hook, because I'm going to change this over to a white. This is a Danville 70 Denier in white. I'm still going to use the white thread all the way up to where the head is made, and but I just want to go to a smaller diameter thread. Then it just ends up being a little less bulky, because now I have to tie in the bucktail and then the throat, and then we tie in the wing and then make the head. I'm going to advance my thread down to where I tied in that pheasant crest, and I'm going to tie in the bucktail. This is just some white bucktail. I've already processed this. You can stack this if you want, or you can also just pull on some of the fibers to try and even those up a little bit. We're going to tie this in about the same length as the pheasant crest, just a little bit past the bend of the hook. I'm going to secure that in, and then I'm going to trim away the excess here, trimming that at a little bit of an angle so I get a little bit of a taper. Now the reason why all of this is tied in back here is because you don't want to crowd the head space with all of this. We're going to tie in the throat now, and we're going to tie that in right at about the base of that bucktail. And there's one bit of throat that's going to go in. Then there's 2 other pieces further up as we get towards the head space that will come in along the sides. The idea here is you're going to add the throat. It adds a little bit of color. In this case, if it's a streamer, this is going to add to the look of a white belly on a bait fish or something. But we also want to, as I bring this forward, see I'm right back at the end of the head space, or in it just a little bit. We want to cover up these thread wraps on the sides. So you're going to take, and I've taken to getting a little bit denser clump of schlappen here. By the way, this is just a schlappen hackle that I'm using. When you get this on the side, you want to push this around a little bit so that the barbs under the thread will spread out to just the side of the hook shank and the bottom. I like to use my thumbnail you can just push on those right under the thread and distribute those so that they're covering from the bottom to the side here. A few more wraps to secure that. As you can see, that will get the side and those thread wraps along the side all covered up. Just take your time with it. And then the last bunch is going to go the same way on the other side. These, you'll notice, are a little bit shorter than the other piece of the throat, and that's fine. I think the reason, again, that she did this is she wanted to keep that baitfish look, but she wanted to cover up some of those thread wraps showing on the sides here. It's been an interesting time researching and learning more about how she did things and why. The interesting thing is she tied by hand. She did not have a vise. And back in those days, they also tied with silk threads, which were, much thicker. And the logistics of tying by hand mean that your processes of doing things are a little bit different. Having a vise and then having a thinner thread and a bobbin, it's a little bit different in terms of the things that you can do. Now, the Carrie Special also has a pheasant crest that is in the throat. I'm going to tie this in kind of the same way as I did the other. I'm going to just put this on the bottom near the butt end of that feather. I'm going to secure that in with 2 or 3 wraps. And then I'm going to grab that butt end and I'm going to pull this to the left here, getting my length that I want. This helps to keep that feather collected and right on the very bottom. So it just blends in with that throat. Securing that, I'll trim away the excess. Now I'm going to smooth all of this off a little bit, and then we're going to tie in the wings. So you can see how when the wings are in, they're going to help cover up some of these thread wraps. But all that throat and the materials on the sides here will cover that up as well. So the wing on the Carrie Special is 2 pink hackles. And again, her recipe calls for the wing, it's the pheasant crest, and then 2 pink hackles. And then there's also and I take that back, that is just 1 hackle. Well, the recipe says 2 pink hackles, and then on the outside you have a slightly shorter golden badger hackle. To me, it's a little confusing sometimes. Does that mean there's 2 pink hackles on both sides, or is it just 2? In this case, I just did 2. So there's 1 pink hackle, then 1 golden badger that's a little bit shorter. Then there's the cheek. Now the cheek on this is a yellow-tipped rump feather from a Lady Amherst Pheasant. And then, not the cheek, the shoulder rather, is the yellow-tipped rump feather of a Lady Amherst Pheasant. And the cheek is the jungle cock. So I'm going to match these up here, getting the bases together. Since I've already processed that ahead of time, my tips are together there. I'm going to cut this off so I'm right at the base of those wings. And then I'm going to tie both of these in at the same time. A lot of videos that I've done up till now, I tie them in separate, and you can do that if you want. But what I found recently is that Carrie would tie these in at the same time. I'm going to place this just right up on this side, kind of holding that in with my left hand, bringing the other side over, because you do want those wings to drape over the sides of the hook. You don't want them riding up at an angle. You want them to drape over. So holding those in place, I'll get them nice and even I want these very ends right here to be right up behind the eye of the hook, and then I'm going to start tying that in. Sometimes these barbs will get pushed forward and kind of get in your way. I'm not really going to worry about them right now. What I want to do is, and by the way, you'll notice my thread is hanging back at the back of the headspace, and the reason for that is if I tried to have my thread up here and tie in, it would pop off all the time. So I'm going to have it back here where I can actually start tying over the rachis, and I will trap some of those barbs in and get this secured. We'll see how that looks. You can push that around a little bit to, if it's not exactly perpendicular, you can push that and twist that a little bit to get that in place. Because I pinch that together, what often happens is the rubber cement on both sides will kind of stick to each other, and I find because of the handling of it while you're tying it in, the feathers ride up just a little bit. So with that in place, I'm going to smooth off the headspace with the white thread, covering everything up and getting a nice smooth shape to it. The Carrie Special has a black head with an orange band. So right now I'm going to change over to my black thread. I'm going to leave the white hanging there. And I'm actually going to leave the white hanging here for a second. I'll show you. I don't know if this is exactly the way to do it. See, I got to start that band, cut away the black so that any tag, this little tag that's right here where that black was cut, will get covered up as I do the rest of this front black band. The white I'm going to leave hanging, but I'm going to drape it over the knob on my vise out of the way. So the black now advances rearward, and I'll get it back to basically its width. I do want to make certain I got things covered up all around. And I'm going to put in a little 4-turn whip finish, a little wax on my thread. In past videos, I would have attached the orange thread a few steps ago and put in a base of orange and just put 2 black bands on it. Again, having discovered a little bit of more of her method, I've realized that she did a little bit different, but I think she kind of had to because of the materials she was using. You could certainly put the base of orange in if you want. For orange, I'm using a uni thread 8/0 in a pumpkin. I leave the white thread hanging there so that it will help me to push, place that thread right up behind that black. Now I could have cut the white off and left the black, but as I advance this forward and trap some of that black thread under it, what I found is I get a black line right under that orange. I don't know if the silks that were used were heavier and they obscured it, because I'm pretty certain that Carrie would attach the black in front, and then I've got one orange wrap that's kind of come out there. I hope I don't, there we go. Anyway, she would attach the black in front, and then she would leave the black attached as she put in the middle color, and she would just wrap over it. And then that way, when she was done with the middle band, the color band, she would have the black right behind it to go ahead and wrap in and put the rear band in. There again, I don't know if that would leave that black showing through a little bit. And as a fishing fly, I don't know that it's that important. With the orange thread hanging there, I'll go ahead and reattach the black thread, getting a few wraps in here to secure that in place. I think I've got to get one more right there. Secure that tag end of the black, trim it off. I can then trim off the orange. And then with the black thread, I'll advance this backwards to get in the rear black band. I think I got everything pretty much covered up around the orange band. You do want to take a little care with your thread wraps here because you can easily bulk up this head with all these added wraps, trying to get things covered up. So with that done, I got one little bit showing right here. With that bit done, I'll put a little wax on my thread, put in a 4-turn whip finish, securing that black thread and cutting that away. So now I'll put some head cement on this. This is some fly tight that will soak down in there, sealing all of that up real well. I'll come back and put a couple layers of a clear lacquer on there to just help protect those threads. So that is the Carrie Special. Not many of her flies have the pheasant crest, the golden pheasant crest in the wing as well as the throat. This is the first one that I've done using the yellow-tipped rump feather from a Lady Amherst in the cheek. Interesting looking fly. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. But what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.